Yeah, so that is a mercha, not a munach, under the word achar. So this is slightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly focusing us forward into what's going to come afterwards. Number 10, after, although it might not happen immediately, it will not be forgotten or forgiven, even after a lapse of some time, as depicted by the directional shape of the reading mark. So going forward, any straying from the principles that were laid out for each of these 70 nations will still be something that ties to their ongoing fate. Hamabul, the flood with the stabilizing sof pasuk. The flood was only a sample of punishment, but similar extensive punishments will be brought on other means than water, but it was only one example and not the last of its kind. So the ability to correct mistakes has the threat of final punishment if you do not make any attempt to correct, and there is no longer a possibility of you correcting. So despite the fact that the Mabul, the flood, was certainly a human tragedy, it allowed stabilization and correction. And each of these nations has in their future a correction of its own, just not related to water, because God promised that after the Mabul. And we have several remarks. Although 3 sons of Noach were entirely different types with divergent characters and aspects, they might reflect the 3 forefathers. Shem, a name, so that's the definition of Shem, may signify Abraham, who had his name changed for the purpose of efficiency. Cham, heat, may denote Yitzchak, who was exposed to the fire of the altar. Yefet, beauty, may refer to Yaakov, who combined the grace and strength of Abraham and Yitzchak, building his sphere of beauty, Tiferet. The 3 forefathers are also portrayed at the beginning of the Torah, although their appearance came later. They are symbolized by any form of a triad. Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanara, so like we say in Shemona Esrei, or
the Rav was an Aleph. Mistake there with no Rav, right?
Yeah. Magen Avraham, Hakel HaKadosh, and Mechayel Metim, the 3 brachas of the Shemona Esrei, the first 3. So we see that whenever we see things referenced in 3, we should look for references to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov.
I don't know if Yitzchak would like to be compared to Cham. I would. What?
Or Yitzchak's not been compared with him.
So when again we have the concept in Hebrew of davar v'hipucho. We have things meaning exactly the thing and exactly the opposite of the thing. We're all given free will. We're all given the ability to be exposed to various stimuli and either do the right thing after we're exposed or do the wrong thing. So obviously Yitzchak is an example of having Yitzchak is 37 when he goes up for the Akedah. If he wanted to overpower Avraham and run away, he certainly could have just gotten up and said, "I'm not participating in this."
I don't think he's given enough credit. Yeah.
So again, when you're given the ability to follow your passions or to do what's right, Yitzchak has the element of Cham there, the ability to follow his passions, and chooses the other direction.
Also, just a point since we're on that topic, is that Cham, even though we think he was a bad guy, Hashem did choose to save Cham, so there must have been some reason to save him. You forget that. If Noach was really tzaddik, he should have saved Noach, maybe his wife. That's it. But he did save Cham.
And Shem and Yefet also.
But I mean, Shem did, of course.
Now, so here when they're saying, what's interesting is they become sort of different nations just by geography and physics, but the commonality is there to keep these 7 laws, and that's just like us, we're spread a diaspora, we're spread all over the world, but no matter where you go, we still have the Ten Commandments, we still have all this, no matter who we are, what language we speak, we still have the same guiding principles and laws.
So
We're up to 70 nations plus, and
uniformity of purpose is seen as higher than diffusion of purpose, and we're seeing that specifically by nifredu hagoyim, when they were separated out into things that were separate. Nifredu has the dargah, has the concept of going down to something lower, and similarly mishpachot, that they were families. At least they were stabilized by what Noach gave them.
right.
Since you mentioned the Baruch call, maybe I'm pushing it, but maybe a dargah, is a dargah always going down? Like maybe you could look at it, you're at the bottom and going up. That same movement could be looked at from either side. I'm just asking, I don't know if that's true. If you go to what, because then we could, you're leaving it already?
At the very least,
Because steps can be steps up or steps down, you know? We'll have to wait, maybe we'll see other
yeah, so I'm thinking specifically. I'm
No.
thinking specifically of Jacob and the ladder with the angels. Olim B'Yordim Bo is Merchat Tivcha Sof Pasuk. So that doesn't help us at all.
Right.
Maybe because it's under the note.
Wait, you checked
So
already?
that
How do you
the
know?
direct-
No, Olim V'Yordim, it's the end of Aliyah. If you name Malachei Elokim, Olim V'Yordim Bo.
Oh, so that's why it couldn't be a dargah, you're saying?
So the question is that another dargah?
No,
Is
but
that
even if it was a dargah, it would be subsumed by the tune for the ending, right? Because is the ending always, it's always just a merchat tivcha?
no?
No.
So when we read through the sentence, we're going to notice that Mishpachot B'nai Noach stands alone as a phrase, and then again we're getting this separation out. L'toldotam, what's going to happen to them in the future, and B'goyehem and their nationhood is going to separate them. Me'ela is going to have that strong trumpeting note to say this is a warning that if you don't follow it, that you're going to nifredu, you're going to be separate, and finally on the land, after the flood, if that isn't your bad fate, then you can potentially have another bad fate happen to you. Eile mishpechot b'nei Noach letoldotam begoyehem umeyeile nifredu hagoyim ba'aretz achar hamavul.
What's the trumpet thing that those the notes are divided into two, right? What's the trumpet thing again?
So the idea is there are some notes that really emphasize a word. So there's a pazer, there's azlageresh, and the question is whether the klishot are thought as trumpets or not. So these are words that are very and a shalshelet. So again, these are words that are the notes that are going to very, very strongly focus us on that one particular word.
And what, as opposed to, is there another group? What's the other group called?
Well,
The non-trumpets. Is there another word? Maybe I don't remember properly. I thought I meant...
No, I don't. I think it's just those particular notes
Are called trumpets.
have that designation. Yeah. So it's not a question of malachim and meshartim or anything like that. It's just the function of that note in very strongly emphasizing the word.
And that's not his original thing, is it? They got that from somewhere. Calling them...
So when you have there are Ashkenazi names and Sephardi names for the notes, and some of them are called shofarot. When you use the Sephardi name.
Oh, really?
For
So-
the Chatzot, so the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, they would say shofar and Chatzot. The Chatzot are fallopian tubes, by the way. Because it's the shape.
We will continue on. We're on page 123. We're
This
at
is
the
the
next
beginning
parak.
of the tower.
Bereshit Yud Aleph, Pasuk Echad, al Genesis 11:1. By he. So with a
Is it a
meracha.
Well, this is a sim, sorry.
with a mercha lightly connected to what has come from before, but mostly pushing us forward into what's going to go afterwards. And it was, number one, after the flood had destroyed a vast area of the civilization, a new beginning started, and it was a preparation for a new kind of catastrophe, Vayihi, in relationship with the previous chapter, and is indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the Gemara in Megillah tells us that when we see a paragraph that begins with Vayihi, usually something bad is about to happen. So Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh, Vayihi b'mei Shvot HaShoftim. So normally this is a word that's going to tell us that something bad is going to happen. So likely connected to what has happened from before. The flood, and yet something new that's bad is going to come out of this, and we're going to go forward into that now.
There must be examples.
So there are examples of it. So if you want to go through the first, if you want to go through the first parak of Gemara Megillah, you will notice that they do bring some where they debate as to whether each one of these things are a negative thing or not, and there certainly is discourse back and forth as to whether they are negative or whether they're positive.
But wait a minute, we just read Yitro, I forget. Is this by Yehi B'Yom Shlishi or no? That maybe I'm saying it wrong. Because that would be a good one then, we're getting the term, but maybe it's not the Yehi B'Yom Shlishi. It's something by Yom Shlishi.
In Yitro?
Yeah.
I thought so, but well, something with Yom Shlishi, that on the third day, that the Shosh
Okay, let's pause the tape for a second.